So, it looks like more bad news for Chargers fans, as if we haven't been through enough already. It's only a day after the playoff loss, and it's looking more and more likely, the signs are all there, that Brandon Staley is not going to be fired, and he's going to be back next year. Hopefully, it is without Joe Lombardi and a whole new offensive coaching staff, even get a new defensive coordinator in there so Brandon Staley doesn't have to call plays. But let me show you a bunch of stuff and a bunch of reasons why it's starting to look like Brandon Staley is going to stick around for at least another season. First of all, and this is a big thing, this is a big deal, Brandon Staley still apparently has the locker room under control. The players still believe in him. They are going out of their way to say nice things about him. Derwin James, one of the leaders on this team, said, Brandon Staley, that's my guy. He's put a lot into it. A lot of guys believe in him in the locker room. I definitely believe in him. That is big praise coming from your all-pro safety, Derwin James. And then another leader on your team, Justin Herbert, the quarterback. He says, we believe in Coach Staley. We believe in the front office. So it's the leaders on the defense and the leaders on the offense. The entire team still believes in this coaching staff. And you can argue, look, okay, so they're just saying this because what else are they going to say? Are they going to say, hey, you guys should go fire the coach? No, they're not going to say that because it's like this sports media training that all the players have. They're not going to say anything bad about the coach or the front office. If they have any qualms with the staff, they're going to take it behind closed doors, and they're going to tell these guys privately so that they don't get the public media harassment. So it could be the sports media training that is keeping these guys from saying anything bad about Brandon Staley when they actually do want him fired. But let's just take a step back for a second. I don't think that is the case, but let's all just take a step back and look at Brandon Staley's resume. And I know that's hard to do right now because we're all emotional right now. I mean, every single Chargers fan cried themselves to sleep last night. At least I did. But Brandon Staley, first season, barely missed the playoffs, was one game away, lost to the Raiders, choked it out. You can argue some bad decisions, a lot of bad decisions in game management last year, as well as going for it on fourth down. This year, same kind of thing, some issues with game management and fourth down decisions as well. And then he made the playoffs this year. So it was an improvement. We also saw less fourth down issues and better game management, very minimally. It was just a slight increase, and we also made the playoffs. So he is improving. And so the players, and not just the players, but also the front office and Dean Spanos, the freaking owner, who that's a whole nother conversation. But all of these guys could be looking at the facts right there, just objectively, and say, oh my gosh, Brandon Staley is improving. Who's to say next year we're not going to go farther into the playoffs because last year we missed it, this year we made it. And you had a 27-point lead in the first half, which that was an amazing first half. Let's be honest. That was the absolute max potential of this team, and they looked really, really good. And because of how good they look, it scares me because I think, and everything is leading up to this, that Brandon Staley is going to be back next year. And also, this is the main reason why I think he's going to be back. Jim Trotter from the NFL media had this huge thread on Twitter, and here's what he said. Okay, let's talk Chargers ground rules. I'm not going to tell you what I would do. I'm going to tell you what I think ownership will do based on more than 2 decades of being around the team. So he's just flat out predicting what he thinks is going to happen. Cutting to the chase, I do not believe they will fire Brandon Staley. Great. However, I do believe there will be changes to the staff. Awesome. So Joe Lombardi hopefully is not going to be here anymore. All right. I believe that Sean Payton has never been a serious consideration because the team has never given serious consideration to firing Staley. I also believe that. I also think that Dean Spanos is pretty cheap, and giving up more than a first-round pick for giving up more than a first-round pick for Sean Payton and paying him like 3 or 4 times the amount of what Brandon Staley is getting, I don't see that happening. Even if they were to make a change, there are too many factors working against Payton walking their sideline. That includes the draft picks. There you go. So the Chargers love their draft capital. They have exercised a first-round pick in each of the last 23 drafts. It didn't help us too much, and not likely to give up multiple picks, including a first-rounder for Payton. He then goes on to say the contract. Sean Payton figures to be one of the league's higher-paid coaches when he joins a team, and the Chargers simply don't spend on coaches in that way. Exactly. Their last three hires have all been first-time head coaches who didn't command large salaries. So he's talking about Mike McCoy, Anthony Lynn, and now Brandon Staley. All these guys were first-time head coaches. Anthony Lynn was an interim head coach at Buffalo, but it's not like you're hiring a guy like Bruce Arians, who was an interim head coach when he was with the Colts, and he was an interim head coach for a long amount of time there. People who call them cheap are ill-informed. Really? I was a beat writer when they pursued Bill Parcells and Jimmy Johnson. The talks never got to money, nor would money have been an issue. Parcells and Johnson were simply content with their lives on the East Coast and out of football. Okay, that's interesting that he would say that they went and pursued him, but how can he say how serious they were? Because neither of these guys ever even got an offer, right? And he's saying that it was more because of Bill Parcells and Jimmy Johnson, but how much of that is on Dean Spanos and the Chargers as well? Were they really interested in really willing to do what it takes to get a great offensive mind or a great defensive mind at head coach? One more thought about the money issue. I've seen them pay top dollar for players. That is true. Junior Seau, LaDainian Tomlinson, Eric Weddle, Phillip Rivers, Joey Bosa, Derwin James, and J.C. Jackson. The negotiations may have been hard, but the players ultimately got paid, some setting the bar at their positions. Now, I look at this kind of two ways. Eric Weddle, they got him for a really cheap deal, a really great deal at the time. And then that's when the safety market, after his deal, that's when the safety market went way higher. Junior Seau, LT, they took care of those guys, Phillip Rivers as well. Joey Bosa, they did not take care of him at all, I think. I mean, in the draft, right after he got drafted, there were all these issues with contract language, and then they eventually had to give in because, they were getting so much backlash from everybody. Derwin James got taken care of. I do agree with that. And J.C. Jackson, he did kind of set the cornerback market for this past offseason. Ownership also believes in checks and balances. Dean Spanos is allergic to giving full authority to one person. Sean Payton had significant influence in New Orleans and likely will want it at his next stop. Yes, that is another reason why I kind of am thinking Sean Payton is not really an option anymore, because Dean Spanos doesn't want to give up control, man. He never does. And Sean Payton, when you give up control to Sean Payton, he's probably going to do some good things, maybe go and take you to the Super Bowl, but it doesn't matter because Dean Spanos wants to control his team. Lastly, and I know many of you do not want to hear it, the leadership likes a lot of things about Staley. Okay, the way he leads, communicates, schemes, and carries himself, that means a lot to them. No one is happy about the Jags' loss, but I believe ownership is confident that Staley, who finished 9-8 and 10-7 his first two seasons, will continue to grow into the job. He was hired only 5 years after working as a D3 defensive coordinator and had only 1 year as an NFL defensive coordinator. Okay, look, there are two ways to look at this. It can either be what Jim Trotter just tweeted right there, where he doesn't have a lot of time in the league and he's only going to get better. Or, oh my gosh, let's cut the ties right now because this was awful. I don't know what to do. I'm kind of torn both ways in this because Brandon Staley does have some really good defensive schemes, but that offense was so terrible to watch the entire season. We need Joe Lombardi gone. If there is not significant change on the offensive coaching staff, it's not going to get any better. So Brandon Staley, what do you guys think? Do you guys want Brandon Staley to stay? I know a lot of you don't. I'm kind of on the fence right now. I wouldn't blame them either way. I really, I would have wanted Sean Payton. I just don't think it's realistic anymore at this point. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.